which was about, I think, around the time that Stephen A signed his last deal. I think that it was 4 or 5. He was hosting First Take with Max Kellerman. He was still doing daily radio every afternoon on ESPN airwaves. And in 2019, the biggest news that I could find about him stretching his wings out into other things was that he was doing fight commentary for boxing and UFC. So that was where we were in Stephen A. Smith land 5 years ago. What do you feel like the next 5 years hold with the new freedom that this deal kind of offers him?
I think they are going to take some chances, and I think specifically when it comes to the streaming, the over-the-top streaming service app, they're calling it Flagship right now. I don't think that's going to wind up being the official name, but that's going to launch next fall. And just, having listened to a bunch of interviews with Burke Magnus and Jimmy Pitaro, like that's, I think, going to be one of the bigger stories of this next year is what happens with Flagship, because this is going to have to be one, they're like going all in with this over the top streaming service, this standalone ESPN app. And they're going to have to find a way to differentiate it from what they're already offering on ESPN Plus. Like they're going to have to make this appealing in a way more than just subscribing to ESPN without having a cable bundle. And so I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I would probably think we're going to get some sort of Stephen A. Smith late night shows, some sort of, maybe they take this Jason Kelsey show they're doing and kind of use it as a testing ground for what they could do with other talents. But I do think we're going to get some sort of separate Stephen A. Smith show aside from First Take, because I think that's what they want this app to be. I think they want to take chances on this app. I think they want to have unique content that you can only get if you're subscribing to the Flagship app. And I think now that you have Stephen A. Smith under contract for 5 years, like that gives you some flexibility. Now, will the show work? Will it stick? I don't know. Jason Kelsey's show won't be the first sports late night show that's tried to make something happen. I don't know, but I think we will see them take chances when it comes to the Flagship and Stephen A. Smith.
So I think you're probably right. I mean, they should be trying that. I think you should expect that from Pat McAfee and Mike Greenberg and all the people that have kind of risen to the top in this kind of stars and scrubs balance sheet for ESPN. But the thing that makes Stephen A. incredible at what he does and the career he's crafted for himself, to me, is that he is so perfect for kind of the, the least common denominator, what do you call it? Just the every person, right? Like everybody likes Stephen A. Smith. And that kind of screams free to me. Like, are there people who will pay money to watch Stephen A. Smith? Are there things about what he provides you? Because he doesn't break news. He's not really nitty gritty analyzing the game or giving you, an edge on betting, or you don't really, in my opinion, like, I don't know a lot of people who have brand loyalty to Stephen A. Smith. Like, I'm going to go where he goes because I have this deep connection. He doesn't really share a lot of his personal life in that way. He has a personality that feels crafted and sculpted even when you're watching him. So that kind of authenticity that we know online can make people really form that type of connection. That's not really there. I don't feel like I imagine a lot of people saying, oh, Stephen A. Smith has a paywalled show. Let me go get my debit card. That just, I don't know. He doesn't feel like the right guy for that to me.
It would have to be something where he leverages his star power and has like incredible guests, has engaging conversations. It would honestly have to be a little bit like his podcast right now. Like, I kind of think of all the Stephen A. Smith content that's out there, I kind of find his podcast to be the most engaging because I find it to largely be him in his truest form. He's still performative, but he's less, it feels less like a show. It feels less like over the top, Dallas Cowboys trolling. It's more authentic interviews, which I think he's actually pretty good at. So if you could find something like that does fit on the ESPN platform, maybe that's how it works. But yeah, like, ESPN, Stephen A. Smith is not, you're right. I think you're right. Like he screams free. He screams like, this is the entry door to ESPN. This is what ESPN is presenting itself as. If you want to subscribe for our NFL draft data or for our insider access. Like that's one thing, but I don't know if like Stephen A. Smith giving his takes on the Cowboys, if that's like moving the needle to get people to subscribe to your streaming service. So I think it would have to be something a little bit more like the Stephen A. Smith show as opposed to First Take.
Yeah, my best guess if I'm building something out is that there is some kind of licensing agreement down the line between Disney and the podcast, that it appears maybe in more of kind of the ABC realm, or on Disney Plus, which they're building out into basically its own thing now, and that type of content maybe becomes more part of what we associate him with. I wouldn't be surprised if he dips into news coverage on a more consistent and full-time basis elsewhere. I mean, that's the one thing about ESPN or about Disney, is they don't really have like a go-to news cable network the way that like NBC and Fox do, where he could just go do something there. So maybe it just is on Fox News, or maybe it is as a partnership with one of these other kind of budding, more like centrist / conservative, digital networks, or whatever that might look like. And maybe it's with one of his old buddies like Sean Hannity. But those would be my two guesses beyond kind of the ESPN stuff that I think we can all predict. The one thing I don't need more alt casts. I don't need him. No. I don't need him talking over an NBA game. So if ESPN's listening here, let's nix that part of it. That's my prediction. But either way, he is making an exorbitant amount of money to do basically the same job he already did.
Yeah. So he got it, right? He's the highest paid talent, I guess, outside of Aikman and Buck.
No, I think he surpassed Aikman and Buck. Yeah, so I think he got the top dollar. I think Aikman was 17 and maybe Buck was like 18 or something, or vice versa. Yeah. And Pat was around the same, but obviously his deal's a little different. So yeah, I think he swooped over the top of all of them. And you could argue his job has the least direct value to the network as far as dummies like us can define as any of those guys. So salute to Stephen A. He did it.
Yeah, get that bag.